Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. I'd like to spend some time today talking about self-worth, self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem, we spoke about it last week, where we talked about how important it was in order to ensure that somebody feels that they have all the talents and capabilities that they can take and make something out of it in terms of creating things that they feel good about. Self-esteem is what we think and feel and also believe about ourselves. Whereas self-worth, although is synonymously used with self-esteem, is a little bit different. It's a feeling that you are a good person, intrinsically, who deserves to be treated with respect. It's a feeling where we respect ourselves, where we feel good about ourselves, where we feel we are worth something not because of external influences, but because of our own intrinsic internal values that we have developed. While self-esteem is about what we think and feel and believe about ourselves, but it's as a result of external things, external accomplishments, things that we act on and get results, and as a result, we feel good about it. We feel proud about ourselves. We feel really happy with where we are with things. Whereas self-worth is about recognizing that I am greater than all those things. Whether I achieve something, whether I excel at something or not, I'm still good with myself. It is a deep knowledge that you have about yourself that I am of value. I have some value that I recognize. I'm lovable. I'm absolutely necessary to this life, not only for myself, but for those around me as well. And my value is totally incomprehensible. That's self-worth, where you think about yourself that way. There's a slight variation about this self-value concept as well. Self-worth is driven by self-value as we are talking about it, and self-value is more behavioral in nature than emotional. It's all about your behavioral relativity to your emotions, more about how you act toward what you value, including yourself, than how you feel about yourself compared to others. Self-confidence is another variation here, but it's not an overall evaluation of yourself. Self-confidence is a feeling of confidence and competence in very specific areas. You might be good at something and you might not be good at something. Irrespective of that, you feel self-confident in areas that you're really good at, but irrespective of your self-confidence in different areas, you still value yourself. You have that self-value about yourself, and as a result, that's self-worth. And self-esteem can vary with the results you find influenced by external forces, but self-worth cannot vary. It's for you to safeguard internally, it's for you to grow internally, and it's all about your intrinsic capabilities, so external influences don't have anything to do with self-worth. Like I said, although self-worth is often used as a synonym for self-esteem, there's slight variation between the two. Self-worth should be less about measuring yourself based on external actions and more about valuing your inherent worth as a person. External actions come into play when you're talking about self-esteem. Self-worth is about who you truly are and not about what you do. Today's problem in society is there's a lot of focus on high self-esteem. Not that all of it is bad, but the problem is that focus involves measuring yourself against others rather than paying attention to your own intrinsic value. If you apply for a job, you don't get it, then your confidence takes a hit. Your esteem takes a hit. And you somehow feel a hollowness about you because you were not qualified to get into a certain company. Whereas when you look at your own self-worth, it shouldn't really matter. You know what you are, you know what your talents are, you know what you're capable of. So why should you consider that you not getting a certain opportunity is your own fault? Perhaps not. There could be a lot of things influencing that decision. As a result, you don't have to feel hollow or empty. You can still feel whole, and you should, because that's how you develop a healthy emotional balance, a healthy behavioral balance as well. The competitive nature of things around us, the culture that we have fostered as a result of this heavy competition, tells us that we need to be special. We need to be extraordinary and above average to feel good about ourselves. But all of us can't be above average. At the same time, a person cannot be above average in all the things. And that's where self-worth helps than self-esteem. Basing one's self-worth on external factors is actually harmful. And a lot of people make that mistake, where they base their worth on external factors instead of knowing internally that they're comfortable and whole as they truly are. As a result of the worry that they set within themselves, there's a possibility that their mental health and physical health can get affected. There have been several studies that have been done on this, and poor self-worth or poor self-esteem actually is related to causing more stress, anger, problems at work, problems at school, and even relationship conflicts. As a result, people tend to indulge in overuse of alcohol or drugs, and as well as have eating disorders. And all of this is but a result of that worry that they have in their head, where they don't feel whole, where they don't feel complete. Whereas if you develop the right kind of self-worth and continue to grow it based on purely internal sources, you not only feel better, but you end up doing well at school or work, and you don't turn to bad influences. As a result, you enjoy great health, physically and mentally, and your self-esteem also boosts up as a result of the improvement at work or school. Although real accomplishments are important to acknowledge, as you build your sense of self, your self-worth should be totally separate. It should only take into account your unique qualities, what makes you special. It's all about you, because you are one single person and there's nobody else out there in the world like you. That means something in terms of your own self-worth, and you need to recognize it. We're all unique, and that itself should give us immeasurable inherent value. We shouldn't be rating ourselves against each other. We should just be ourselves. Like I say, you've been put in life in a certain spot, and you just have to accept it and move forward so that when you leave, you make it better. You make whatever you can better by the time you leave, starting at the point where you were born. You can't blame someone else for the circumstances that you were born in, for what your life has turned out to be, but it's all you. You can either make it or break it, and that depends a lot on how you develop your self-worth. And if you develop your self-worth right, your self-esteem also grows immensely. They're all related. So the first step in building your self-worth is to stop comparing yourself to others and analyzing and evaluating every move you make. There's an inner voice that sits in all of us, and I've talked about this before as well. It's not you when this inner voice talks to you. It's a totally different voice. It's your inner voice that's talking to you, and more times than not, it'll have negative connotations. It's like this nasty coach that you have in your head. It'll constantly nag you, and it'll start bringing up negative thoughts about yourself. Either you can succumb to it, or you can push back your inner voice and show your inner voice that you're better than what it thinks you are. And when you do that, that's when you ensure you build your self-worth. Don't let your inner voice undermine your sense of self-worth. A true sense of self-worth can also be fostered by practicing self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you would treat others out there, maybe a friend or a family member. When you're kind to others, why can't you be kind to yourself? Acknowledge what you're going through. Notice your own suffering, your highs, your lows. Care for yourself, be kind to yourself, and respond how you would respond to an external person to yourself when you're suffering through something. Care for yourself. Remember that nobody's perfect. We're all imperfect human beings. And imperfection is a part of who we truly are. We have to accept it and make something out of it and move forward. An imperfection should not be a hurdle. Don't let it be a hurdle for you. In fact, rally around it and ensure your strengths grow so much that that imperfection hardly matters. Add meaning to your life. Take part in activities that you feel are important for yourself, whether it's music, art, whatever you want to do. Do things that you love, you enjoy, and that's one great way of building your self-worth. Just like you help others. If helping others makes you feel good, do that. But ensure that you help yourself as well. Do things that give a boost to your feeling good about yourself. Respect yourself and expect the same respect from others of you. When somebody doesn't respect you, don't take it lying down. Be vocal about it. And that's where your self-worth and self-esteem come together to represent you. Maintain your integrity in your life by insisting to yourself that you will live by your principles. So whatever you believe, make sure that your actions back it up. And that'll give you a sense of true accomplishment in terms of who you truly are. Now, there are things that don't really determine your self-worth, but a lot of people turn to them to understand what their true self-worth is. List of things that you plan on doing and achieving goals. When you slip, it takes a hit. Your self-worth takes a hit. It shouldn't have to. Your self-esteem could take a hit too. But the thing is, if you have slipped, and if your principles are that you will live up to your expectations, you have to take action and take responsibility and move forward. No point feeling low or feeling bad about it. Your job. A lot of people tie their self-worth very closely with their job because that's all they have in terms of a self-identity. And that's a big problem. It's an epidemic. It's not about you feeling whole because you're holding on to a job. A job should fulfill you, absolutely, but you have to be dependent on your own intrinsic strengths, your skills, your talents, your expertise, so that a job doesn't identify you. All of these things that I just talked about in you identify who you truly are. You could move from one job to the other and it should not matter at all. In today's world, we live in a time where layoffs are so prevalent. Somebody could go through 2 to 3 layoffs in their entire career. But if you take it personally, what will happen is you will destroy your own self-esteem, your own confidence, and as a result, it will be difficult to get up. So you have to depend on yourself. You are stepping into the job. You are fulfilling the job. You are the one who completes the job, not the other way around. And in times of being so dependent on digital media and social media, a lot of people look at each other and say, okay, how many followers do you have versus how many do I have? That shouldn't also matter at all. That should not in no way determine what your self-worth is all about. How old you are, how many friends you have, what kind of friends you have, how accomplished are they, where do you stand in terms of their accomplishment. All of these things are external factors and you should not let them influence your self-worth at all. Because when they influence your self-worth, that's when the feeling of emptiness comes in and you get into a self-destructive mode. Getting good grades is great. It boosts your esteem. But from a self-worth standpoint, a grade should not determine what you're worth. You have to take responsibility when you have low grades, but you got to move forward and ensure that you take responsibility, work harder, and get to the grades that you want to get to in order to feel good about yourself from a self-esteem standpoint. But your self-worth should not take a hit if you have bad grades. You know what you're capable of. What kind of relationship status you're in, that shouldn't have any bearing on your self-worth as well. The kind of money you make, the bank balance, all of these things shouldn't really matter. What matters in terms of fostering self-worth is you need to give yourself unconditional love, respect, and be positive about yourself. And I think that goes in terms of boosting others' self-worth as well. If you're a parent and you want to know how to treat your kids, give them unconditional love. They need to know that irrespective of whether they do great at studies or sports or whatever they're doing, or whether they don't do great, you still love them. And when they understand that, they will start developing a high self-worth themselves. That's when they will not tie themselves back to their grades or their performance at different things. All of those things, accomplishments are important, and they need to have the principles and the responsibility to go after them. But if they slip, if they fail, they do not need to feel bad about themselves. And that comes from giving them unconditional love and respect. And that's how you foster self-worth in others, be it your kids, friends, family, whoever it is. There are a few activities that we can do in terms of developing self-worth, and we can ensure that those around us do the same thing. You need to ensure that you have some level of self-understanding. Increase that level of self-understanding about yourself, your self-introspection. Who are you truly? Who truly are you in any setting? And that's what you need to propagate out there, whether it's with family, friends, at work, at school. You don't have to have these defensive walls and layers that you put up when you're interacting with others. Just be yourself. It's cumbersome. It's tiresome having all these walls and layers. Most people do it for one reason or the other, but very soon you'll know how tiring that is. That's why you have to lay them down and be who you truly are. Because then guess what? You're free from all notions of walls and masks, and you're your true self, and you'll only attract those that get attracted to your true self. Otherwise, you don't want to deal with people that don't get attracted to you. So, increase your self-understanding, boost your own self-acceptance, accept yourself for who you are and however you are. Because when you accept yourself, that's when your self-confidence grows, and that's when others can see through you in terms of your self-confidence, and they'll be able to accept you as well. Love yourself. Just like you love others, love yourself. Do things for yourself that make you feel good. Take responsibility for yourself. Ensure that you're taking responsibility for your actions. If you hold yourself at a high stead, your principles, your standards, make sure that all your actions and words match your principles and standards. That's taking responsibility. Not saying one thing and doing one thing. When what you say and what you do match what your standards and principles are, that's taking responsibility. And as a result, all of this combined ensures you have a high self-worth, and you will recognize your own self-worth, and so will others in you. And when others recognize your self-worth in you, they start acting per what you expect from them. They start respecting you, they start liking you, they start matching up with your self-worth, and that's where your self-esteem takes a boost as well. So for all intensive purposes, focus on your self-worth, do what you need to do in terms of boosting your self-worth, and always think good about yourself, be good to yourself, and as a result, reflect it externally on others. And I can assure you, everything around you will be great, will be positive, and everything will fall in line the way you want it to be throughout your life. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please do check out my website, rajivmudumba.com, and do leave a review and a comment on your favorite platform for Plan B Success Podcast. Thank you.